Hello and welcome back. Today we have some real interesting news and debates on the second stimulus check in the form of a payroll tax cut. Now I think you're really going to enjoy this discussion and breakdown of payroll tax cuts so you can better understand what's going on here and the implications of it if it were to be enacted. Before I get into it, please remember to stimulate the like button on this video and check out the link in my description for Webull if you haven't already, so you can receive 2 completely free stocks once you make an account. Heck, you could think of those free stocks as a third stimulus check. Anyways, let's get into the news. Last week, I talked about President Trump, who pretty blatantly said he will not accept a stimulus package that doesn't include payroll tax cuts. Well, we have some pretty important updates here. First, let's do a little recap on payroll tax breaks. If you've already listened to me talk about them, I apologize deeply, but not everyone knows about these, so feel free to skip ahead 30 seconds if you already know all these details. A payroll tax cut would work as a stimulus for employees and employers because those people would each save 7.65% of most wages that typically go to the federal government for Social Security and Medicare. A payroll tax cut would save the average U.S. worker about $375 per month. Employers would save that same $375 per month for each one of its employees on average for the average worker. And self-employed individuals would save around $750 per month on average in taxes, again for average wages. Self-employed individuals get a little bit more because they work as the employer and employee when it comes to federal taxes. All right, back to President Trump. He is all for a payroll tax holiday. Back in May, he said, we're not doing anything, referring to the next stimulus package, unless we get a payroll tax cut. Then last week, the White House released a statement calling on Congress to pass this tax cut as part of the next package, citing that it will help our hard-working Americans. And then again, just yesterday, President Trump said, and this is a quote directly from him, "I think it's a very important thing. I think it's an incentive for companies to hire their workers back. A payroll tax cut to me is very important." So we know he is serious about this. However, despite Trump's support, a payroll tax cut hasn't been very popular with the public or other legislators. The issues cited so far with a payroll tax cut program are that it would diminish funding to the Social Security and Medicare programs that really can't handle less funding. The program would disproportionately help high-income earners, which does make total sense if you just do the math. If everyone who is working saves 7.65% of their wages, that means a much larger stimulus for the rich, for the high-income earners. Just for example, someone who makes $300,000 a year would save over $1,900 in payroll taxes per month, while someone who makes $30,000 a year would save just around $190 a month in tax. People also cite that this program does nothing to help those who have lost their jobs and can't find work, which of course is true. You have to be working in order to save tax on your wages. However, I believe the second biggest issue with a payroll tax cut is simply its PR. All of the above problems I've cited have potential solutions. A bill could be written to make sure Social Security and Medicare receive funding proportional to the loss created by this program. There could be an income limit where you can only save payroll tax up to a certain wage per month. That way the rich don't benefit more. They could do something like the average wage or up to $5,000 in income, something like that. And a payroll tax could be paired with another stimulus package to help those who have also lost their jobs so they're not left in the dark. So there are ways around each of these problems, which leads me to believe it's a PR problem why people don't like this program. It's just not sexy. A $1,200 check, that's sexy. But saving a little bit on each paycheck just isn't. It's harder to get the excitement behind it. I'd like to point out that this isn't just the public that is generally against a payroll tax cut. Many Republican members are even against it, and this is where things are going to get really interesting. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley has the best point against a payroll tax cut that I've seen so far. When talking about a direct stimulus check versus a tax holiday, this is what he has to say. This is a direct quote from him. "I think when a person has a check in his hand for X number of dollars, I think that's going to do more economic good than if we dribble out $30 of every paycheck because people aren't going to notice it." Now first, I'd like to point out that the average American would get more than $30 on each paycheck, but I think he mostly said that for dramatic effect, so I'm not going to dwell on that point. You know how I said earlier the second biggest issue with a tax holiday is PR? Well, this is the number one issue. This is the only argument against a payroll tax holiday I've seen so far that I can't think of a simple solution for. He's totally right, plain and simple. If someone is saving $150 to $300 in tax per month broken up over each paycheck, they simply won't put that back into the economy as fast as they would one big lump sum check. It's not as exciting, you don't notice it as much. It could even be more money and you might still spend less, or you won't spend it right away if it's, like he says, dribbled in on each paycheck. The act of receiving a big check from most people makes the gears turn in their minds as to all the possibilities of what they could spend that payment on. I always think back to the computer that I recently bought to edit my videos faster. A guy built this computer for me, and I was talking to him, chatting when I went to go pick it up, and he said that when the stimulus checks came out, he sold more computers in that month than he has ever in the 10 years that he's done it. That is just multiplied across millions of people and businesses across the country, and those people wouldn't have bought that computer that month if they didn't receive that stimulus check. And I just really don't think that we would see the same effect with a payroll tax cut that we did with that last stimulus check. After all, the whole point is to stimulate the economy. Honestly, in the past, I've pointed out why a payroll tax holiday could still work because I simply couldn't find anyone else making the points I was. And I think it's important to play devil's advocate occasionally to show all the sides of why decisions might be made. However, after this realization that it wouldn't help the economy as quickly as a check would on a dollar for dollar basis, I'm going to say I'm actually out on this one. I don't think it's the plan to take. I think that money would be better spent elsewhere. Now, you could say that it may still work if it's paired with a stimulus check or some other program. However, Senator Grassley has also said that if Republicans are trying to keep the total package size around these package sizes around $1 trillion, there really isn't room for both checks and a tax cut. And we already know from earlier today that the Senate bill is going to include more direct stimulus checks. I have a whole video on that if you haven't seen it already. I definitely recommend you checking it out for a major update on the direct stimulus check. However, to comment on the total bill size, I'm going to go out on a limb and take a guess that the next package isn't going to be just $1 trillion flat. I think it's going to probably land around $1.8 trillion. So far, we've only taken a look at Trump and Grassley's view of the tax holiday. Let's quickly look at what others are saying. First, we know that the Democratic majority simply don't like the idea for all the reasons I've cited earlier, but the consensus for other Republicans doesn't look a whole lot better. Republican Senator John Thune said he personally doesn't support the idea of a payroll tax holiday, and Republican Senator John Cornyn, sorry if I mispronounced that, warned McConnell the tax holiday would be problematic. I've yet to actually find a public comment from McConnell on the topic. He didn't mention it today either when he went over his stimulus proposal, but I'd be curious to see where exactly he sits on the issue. All in all, it doesn't appear to be too great of an outlook for a payroll tax holiday. President Trump really seems to be the only person seriously pushing for it right now. His own Republicans just aren't helping, and of course the Democratic members are in favor of other programs instead of this. I personally will be surprised if we see this happen in the next package. I still think that just a simple second stimulus check is the best way to go to stimulate the economy. Research actually shows that that's the best way to stimulate the economy. And as I've said before though, the best stimulus is the one that's actually in people's bank accounts. So I'll be happy with whatever form it comes in, but I just think a direct payment, it's simple. Keep it simple. That's the way to go. So that's all I have for today. If you'd like to stay up to date on these topics, consider subscribing and hit that notification bell so you can know right when I drop a video. That way you can be up to date right away. I promise you won't regret it. Until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.